Hello all, so welcome to this long hold restorative practice. You may need a couple of things today, you may not, but I've got a big cushion that I could be leaning on when I'm doing things like pigeon or putting under my bum when I'm in child's pose. Also got a block. If you haven't got a block, get a few books just to stack up. The block has 3 heights. It's going to be used in a supported bridge. So we have the flattest, the next level, and then the highest level. Depending on where you want to place your back, think about how many books you might need for the level of a block. So grab hold of your tools and maybe have to pause me and then come back to the video. So when we hold poses for a long time in a restorative manner, it just allows all that connective tissue and those muscles just to release a little bit more. So we won't be doing quite so many poses through the class, but we'll be holding them anywhere up to about 30 seconds on both sides, maybe even up to a minute. And we'll just see how we feel in those poses. So we're going to start in child's pose, which is a really good hip opener and a lower back stretcher. So come to the back of the mat. Bring your big toes together, bring your knees as wide as you want to take them. The wider they go, the more you get stretch on the inside of those thighs. So slowly bring those sit bones back towards the heels. If those sit bones don't meet, you could always place a cushion under the bum, let the bum come to the cushion, and then reach your hands forward towards the front of the mat, bringing your chest down towards the floor, the forehead to the mat, and just find your body settling here in this pose for a good few long, easy breaths. I'd like you to close your eyes if you're happy to do so. So you can just come more internally to see how that body feels. So check in from the fingertips through to the wrists. Notice how those arms are feeling, how the shoulders are feeling. Maybe they feel a little tight with the arms out too long. If they do, just bring those hands in a little bit. If you need to use your block underneath your forehead, just to allow it just to come a little higher so that neck feels a little more relaxed. Just take those breaths nice and deeply. Try and think about some expanse and space being created on the inhale, and then that relaxation coming on the exhale. Just soften through the chest. How does that lower back feel? How do those hips feel? Maybe you want to rock them a little from side to side. How does it feel on the inside of those thighs, in the groin area? Do they feel a little bit tight? How do the front of the thighs feel? What's happening in those knees? Does one side feel any different to the other? That's the same in the shoulders. Does one shoulder feel a little tighter than the other? Just giving the time just to notice the whole of the body as we hold these poses. Thinking of the breath all the time, taking nice, long, easy breaths in through the nose. Maybe sighs out through the mouth. Maybe you want to take that breath in and out through just the nose. Depending on how your body feels, whether you're holding any colds or allergies, will determine what breath you take. Is things starting to feel as though they're releasing a little bit as you're holding yourself in this child's pose? Are you noticing maybe those bums coming a little closer to the heels? If you don't wish to carry on using the blocks or your books, maybe remove it and just bring the forehead to the mat. If you don't feel you need to use the cushions because those hips are starting to open a little, maybe just move that cushion aside and bring those sit bones a little closer towards those feet. Long, easy breaths as we hold in this child's pose. Are you creating any tension in the neck? If you are, just try and relax those shoulders a little more. Relax through the hands. Holding here for one more breath. Then just lifting the chest and the forehead away a little. Bring the knees together now. So the knees and the feet start to come together. Let the chest sit over those thighs. And just let the top of the head come onto the mat if it can reach. Just bring the hands behind you and just let the shoulders curl over those thighs. So we've got a rounding in between the shoulder blades. Just let everything hang heavy. Are you holding any tension in the legs? If you are, just see if you can release that tension. And what about in the shoulders? Do those shoulders feel like you're holding anything? If they are, use a long breath in and let that out breath be what softens everything around through the neck and the shoulders. Let the fingers gently curl as the palms are facing up to the ceiling, tops of the hands flat on the floor. Taking this embryo pose, maybe stretching the back of that neck a little, tucking that chin in towards the chest. Tops of the feet flat on the floor. So we get that stretch through the top of the foot all the way up into that shins. Nice, long, easy breaths. Noticing the parts of the body that are touching the mat. Tops of the feet, the shins. Front of the forearms, back, top of the hands, top of the head. Keep those breaths coming. Keep that awareness around that body. Maybe connecting in a little with that Ujjayi breath, that slight restriction at the back of the throat if you're using the nose as your inhales and your exhales. The key to this kind of practice is taking long, easy breaths in and complete breaths out. So starting now to make a way into what we call our puppy pose, which will stretch the chest. Maybe you want to bring a cushion underneath that body if the chest doesn't all the way meet to the floor. So this time the bums are going to be staying over the hips. We reach the hands forward and then we let that chest sink either onto the cushion or down to the mat. Just pointing that chin slightly forward. So that chest gets a nice stretch into the ribs, through the belly. Easy breaths in, long breaths out. So maybe you want to tuck the toes under here just to stretch the bases of the feet in through the toes. See whether you can sink a little lower on every out breath. Give into that cushion or into the mat. If that head feels a little compromised, maybe just bring the head face into the cushion. Maybe just have a little turn of the head in one direction. And then turn it to the opposite side. Then walking the hands back towards you. Just give those shoulders a little rock from side to side. Remove the cushion from underneath the body. Flatten the feet back up. And we're going to do a few spinal articulations here in cat-cow. Take a breath in, lift up the bum, lift up the head and let the belly drop, and we'll just hold it in cow just for a few breaths, creating some space between the ears and the shoulders, stretching that belly, arching through that back, pushing into the tops of the feet. Then on the next out breath you take, bring that chin into the chest, push into the hands, lift up the centre of the spine to the ceiling and hold it here in the cat position for a couple of breaths. Just find a little softness in the elbows, try not to hyperextend through those joints. Taking long breaths in, expanding the back of the body on the inhale. Letting that head go, try not to hold any tension through that neck. And then bringing it back to a neutral space. And then just take a few rounds of cat-cow, articulating on the breath in, drop the belly into cow. On the breath out, send the centre of the spine to the ceiling, back into cat. Do 3 rounds of that to your breath. The inhale, the expanding of the front side of the body, and the exhale, expanding the back side of the body. Take it slowly, notice how your spine feels like it's moving. Softening those elbows, pushing into the hands, pushing into the tops of the feet. Maybe closing the eyes, switching into this internal space. How does that energy level feel? Have you noticed that breath has started to lengthen? The longer the breath, the more relaxed that body will become. The next time you come back through a neutral space, step both feet back to the back of the mat and then slowly lower to the floor. The whole body, if you need to drop the knees, drop the knees. Then bring the arms forward, fingertips in front of you to find Sphinx position. So the feet are just hip width apart, tops of the feet flat on the floor. Arms are in line with the shoulders, elbows under the shoulders. So we have like train track arms. Widen the fingers and push into those hands. Try and feel that expansion from the lower ribs all the way up to the collarbones. The gaze is forward, maybe the eyes are closed. Push those hips into the mat, just to take that pinch out of the lower spine. Just squeeze that bum as you push those hips in nice and close. Long, easy breaths here. Remember, if you're connecting that Ujjayi breath, that slight restriction at the back of the throat, it will help warm that body internally. And just try and relax those lower limbs, relax the glutes. Maybe lift that chest a little more by pushing into those forearms. Taking this mini back bend in Sphinx pose. Then release that chest down to the floor. Bring the elbows out by the sides. Bring one hand on top of the other. Bring your right ear to the top of the hands. Bring your left knee out to the side. Still keep the foot and the knee on the floor. And then just hold it in this crocodile pose. So that left hip we're trying to encourage down to the mat, but trying to let that gravity take a hold. Relax through that straight right leg and just feel that openness through that hip on the left side. Relax the shoulders, let the tongue drop away from the roof of the mouth. Just breathe that breath either in and out through the nose or in and out through the mouth. Just trying to find relaxation through the whole of the body. Pretty much most of this practice can be done with the eyes closed. It just allows us to be more aware of what's happening within the body, noticing the tight spots, noticing the tension we're holding, just trying to release, let it go. Then release that left foot back to meet the right, just so it comes back into hip width apart. Turn the head. This time bring the left side of the head onto the top of the hands. Bring the right knee out to the side. So the knee comes almost up to hip height position, but both the knee and the foot is on the floor. And then just try and encourage that right hip to soften closer towards the mat. Relax any tension you're holding in the left leg. Relax any tension you're holding in that right glute. Relax the shoulders. Relax through the neck. Keeping those eyes closed, keeping that internal awareness. That long, deep, easy breath in. And that complete breath out. You started to create some tension again back in that neck and shoulders. If you have, just try and let it go. Then release that right leg back to meet the left and bring the hands underneath the chest. Tuck the toes under, push into the hands, bring the chest back to those thighs. Let the forehead come down to the floor just for a couple of breaths as you stretch through those armpits. The toes tucked under to stretch the bases of the feet. That lower back releasing. Those hip flexors compressing. Then coming on to the knees. Bringing your right knee just to the outside of the heel of the right hand. Walk the left toes back a little further to the back of the mat. Take a hold of your right foot and turn it underneath the body to whatever range of movement you have here. Anywhere between 35 degrees and 45 degrees. And then just allow that left hip to rock in and out towards that right foot. Maybe that leg can come to even a 90-degree angle, so it's level to the front of the mat. It certainly doesn't happen with me. Just rocking that left hip down towards that right foot. Maybe rolling through the head. Getting some movement through that neck. And then just allow that left hip to settle towards that right foot. You can maybe use your cushion here to bring it in front of you, just so then you can start to come down either onto the forearms or stay up on the hands if that feels okay for you. If you need your block just to support underneath that right bum cheek, just so it's not hovering too much in space, then bring the head down. Maybe you want to reach the arms forward as you rest that chest on top of either the cushion. If you're not using a cushion, just rest that chest on top of the mat. Maybe you want to turn the head to one side and just allow that body just to totally relax over that right foot. with that external rotation of that right hip. So we're stretching that left leg, particularly through that hip flexor and through that left thigh. If you're happier to keep your head and chin to the floor, gaze forward, or maybe turn onto the other side just to stretch that neck on the other, in the other way. Find your comfortable space. Maybe you don't need to have the cushion. If the cushion doesn't feel right, then bring that chest all the way to the mat. Remember, you can maybe rest the hands onto the head onto the top of the hands. Just using the out breath, sending that breath to any spaces that feel tight, just to see whether you can let go of anything you're holding, anything that doesn't serve you. See whether those muscles and connective tissue will give a little bit more to find a little more range of movement. How are you holding in the shoulders and the neck? Do they feel a little tight? Do they feel a little tense? If they do, just see whether you can let go of any tension you're holding in that space. Maybe give those muscles a squeeze and then let those muscles release. Remember, you can lengthen up through the arms as much as you can as you relax over that right thigh. Just holding it here just for another breath. Then bring those hands back to the sides of the body, by the sides of the head. Push those hands into the mat to lift up the chest. If you've used a block to support that right bum cheek, just move it out of the way. Tuck your back toes under, lift up your back knee. Bring that right knee back underneath your hip, your left knee to join, and just move those hips a little from side to side. Maybe turn the fingertips out so we get into those wrists a little. And then bring those hands back underneath those shoulders. This time bring your left knee to the outside heel of the hand. Your right toes go to the back of the mat. Take a hold of that left foot and turn it underneath that body. Check in with how that knee feels. Just bring the hands both back to the mat. And then just rock that hip of the right down to meet that left foot a few times. Just going in and out a little more dynamically, just so that body can get used to the stretch you're putting it in. Just letting those hips release a little. And just have a little mindful thought of how it felt on your right side compared to how it feels on your left. I always know my left side's a little more tight as it's my more stable hip. So quite often I get a lot of tightness in the outside piriformis muscle on that left hip. Then if you want to come down onto your cushion or come down onto the forearms onto the mat, maybe bring that head onto stacked hands. Maybe reaching the hands forward just to relax that chest a little more onto the floor. Maybe stretching through those armpits, sides of the waist if you're reaching far forward with the hands, taking those arms into full flexion, but try and keep everything around the shoulders and neck relaxed. Everything sinking into the floor. Using that breath, long easy breaths in, long relaxed complete breaths out. Maybe still using that warming Ujjayi breath. Sometimes that audible sound to you feels quite nice. Sometimes you notice that range of movement going a little deeper as you hold these poses for longer. But sometimes things start to niggle when we hold. If you can just give that niggle a little space, maybe hold just for another breath before you choose to move out. And if you hold for another breath, sometimes that niggle disperses. Sometimes that feeling of needing to come out releases, and you can find a little more space. Remember, transitions are basically like sitting on a fence. It's not sure whether it wants to, but sometimes it just has to be given a little more time and a little more space to realise that it will allow more range of movement to happen, for change to happen. So when you're ready, coming back up onto the hands, pushing into those hands to lift up that chest. Once you've come up onto your hands, just take a moment there, and then tuck under the back toes, lift the back knee, bring that left knee back underneath the left hip, right knee back to join it, and just take a little movement from side to side. Just relaxing those hips a little. Then bringing it back to stillness, just take a couple of rounds of cat-cows just to articulate that spine. Folding on your exhale into your cat. Lifting the head and bum on the inhale to take it to cow. Keeping those eyes closed maybe, just to feel that transition of that spine into flexion and extension. Then find that neutral place. This time bring your right foot to the outside of the right hand. Maybe take that left knee back a little further, pushing those left toes back to the back of the mat, and then just allow those hips to sink. That right knee by the side of the right shoulder. Maybe move those hips a little, those shoulders a little, before we find a little stillness in this place, in our lizard pose. So your choice can be to stay upon the hands, or you could possibly use a block to maybe come down onto those forearms. We're going to keep that back knee dropped unless you really want to activate the glutes, but we're trying to find a little restorative pose here. So that left knee, I would rather you keep it grounded unless you really want to take it to another place. If you've come down onto your forearms, we're just sinking into those right hips a little more. Maybe you want to come down a little lower, in which case you move the block. Maybe you want to use that cushion underneath those arms, so you've got something a little softer to relax onto. Again, if you want to sway the body a little, just letting the left hip flexors stretch, the right hip flexors compressed, but we're getting a little openness through that right hip. Try and relax through the shoulders, taking long, easy breaths. Maybe just let go of the head, just let it hang down towards the floor, so you're not holding any tension around that neck. Use that breath. The longer that breath becomes, the more we go into that rest and restore mode with the nervous system, taking it from sympathetic down to a parasympathetic state. Remembering if that body is starting to tell you to come out, just read it. If you really feel you need to come out of the pose, do so. Or if you can just hold it a little longer, maybe for that transformation, that place of change, that different range of movement as you hold in these places. Just taking one more breath in this lizard position. Maybe you're still up on your hands, maybe you're down on a block, maybe you're down on a cushion, maybe you're all the way down onto the mat. Wherever you are, bring those hands back up. Remove whatever you're using. Bring that right knee back to meet the left. Take it slowly, knees underneath the hips. And just take a few moments rocking those hips from side to side. Walking the hands a little further forward. Bring those hips forward but not to the floor. Take those hips round to the right. Bring them back towards the heels. Over to the left. Back to the heel of the hands. Then take it in the opposite direction. Over to the left. Back towards the heels. Over to the right. Back towards the heel of the hands. Bring yourself back into a tabletop position. Hands under the shoulders. Bring your left foot now to the outside of that left hand. Walk the right toes back a little further so we can drop those hips a little lower. Maybe you stay up on your hands. If you went down onto the forearms on the other side, see whether you can take it into that same space. But if it's tighter on one side, maybe you just need to elevate it up a little bit. Obviously, we do try and encourage the same on both sides, but sometimes one side won't work the same as the other. Again, this is my left tight side, so I can feel it a lot more in the outside of this left hip. But to be honest, if I bring it back to the space where I was on the right, I can just try and allow that stretch to come a little deeper. Keep using my breath, relaxing through the head, trying to let those hips relax down towards the mat. They don't reach, but their intention is to go in that direction. I use my breath to try and release any tension I'm holding. Bringing my awareness to the spaces that feel tight. I can feel quite tight on the inside on this left groin also. I can feel tight through that right hip flexor. Work out where your own personal tightnesses are. Maybe looking and appreciating one side doesn't do the same as the other. Being aware how the difference of both sides feel. Really important to know your body, to know how it moves, to know how it holds. So when you do one-to-ones with me, I quite often get you to do different holds on different sides. So maybe if this was me, I'd probably hold this left side longer than I would the right, just knowing that it's a little tighter. But because we're doing a generic, not all of us are the same, so we're holding roughly the same on both sides. And then when you're ready, slowly coming back up onto the hands if you're not already there. Remove any blocks, any cushions. Bring that left knee back to underneath the hips. Both knees in the same position. Then bring the hands slightly forward. Bring the hips forward. Then let those hips come over to the left side. Bring them back towards the heels. Over to the right side. And back towards the heel of the hands. Going the opposite direction. Over to the right. Back towards the heels. Over to the left. And back towards the heel of the hands. Then bring yourself down. Bum to the heels. Knees come together. Bring the hands behind you. Fingertips pointing to the back of the room. Then try and squeeze those shoulders together and lift up through that chest, taking it into our baby camel position. A little back bend, but without lifting up those hips. We're trying to keep it more restorative. Maybe either have the gaze forward Or if you're happy to let the neck go, gaze back towards the back of the room. But if you've got neck issues, try and keep it a little more supported by either gazing up to the ceiling or to the front of the mat. Again, use that breath, holding it in this space, noticing how that spine feels, noticing how the tops of the feet feel as they're in this stretch all the way up through those shins. If the head's back, bring that head back up. Take a gaze towards the front of the mat. Push that chest a little higher. Squeeze those shoulder blades together a little closer. And then bring that chest back up, shoulders over the hips. Just give those wrists a little rotation in one direction and then round to the other way. And then finding either your block or your books. So we're going to find a yogic squat but supported. So bringing your feet out mat width apart, heels pointing in, toes pointing out. Choose your height of block or books. Bring the hands to the chest, elbows to the inside of the knees as you release those bums down onto a block, whatever height suits your hips. However low you wish to go, remember those 3 height of blocks, or if you're using books, either remove a book at a time just to see what feels a right space for you to come to. So having that support just allows us to use less muscle. So it allows us this stretch on the inside of the groin. Those elbows are helping to hold those knees out so we don't have to use the muscles on the outside of the hips to do it. Close the eyes. How does your left hip feel compared to your right? And just allow that chin to drop into the chest and just let that neck release. Feel the stretch down the back of the neck, maybe all the way into that thoracic spine. Relaxed through the toes. Relax those shoulders. Using whatever you need to in support with tools. Obviously we have the yoga blocks myself, but anything you can grab a hold of from home that creates that block shape. One more breath in this yogic supported squat. Then release the hands. Bring the hands behind you, bring the knees together. Release the block from under your bum if you want to, or if you want to use that as your seat, bring the bum onto that block. As we're going to take it now into butterfly pose. So just let those knees drop out to the sides. Soles of the feet come together. Grow tall through the spine. Lift up through the chest. And then just allow yourself to fold from the hips if you've got that space to fold. Just letting the arms relax on top of those inner thighs. Those hips being slightly elevated just allows those hips maybe to open a little more. If you don't wish to use the block and you want to come down all the way to the bum, it will just maybe, if you start to round in that lower back, maybe just bring that block back under. Try not to make this too active. Try not to push with those elbows, pull with the hands. Just make it restorative. Let the head go. Stretch the back of that neck. Maybe that out breath finds that little more relaxation over that body. Maybe you want to release the hands down in front of you, just to allow those shoulders to relax a little bit more. How does that upper spine feel through the neck, through the thoracic, that's the space in between the ribs? Just holding it here just for another couple of breaths. Letting everything from the waist down relax, from the waist up relax. Then bringing those shoulders back over the hips, help the knees back into the centre. Straighten out your right leg, I'm mirror imaging you. Let your left foot come over the right leg. Then bring your right hand and hook it around that left knee. Bring your left hand behind the back, fingertips pointing back. Breathe in, elongate. Lengthen up through the crown. Breathe out and find some twist. Try not to force the twist here really. Using that right arm with the hook around that left knee. Just use that breath. Find that twist on every exhale. Close those eyes. Be aware of where that rotation's coming from. That centre of the spine. The hips are grounded. You're holding on to that left knee with the right arm, just as some support. That left hand supporting you at the back. You don't have to be so active through that straight leg in this one. Just let everything relax through that straight leg. Is that breath allowing you to twist a little deeper? And then bring those shoulders back around to the front. Straighten out the left leg. Bring a bend into your right knee, right foot over the left. And then bringing that left elbow to hook around the right knee. Bring the right hand behind. Breathe in, elongate, breathe out and twist. Again, let that foot of that left come a little bit more relaxed. Those eyes being closed just allows everything to work on the internal level. Taking away that sensation of sight, we'll switch on other sensations within the body, the sense of touch, that sense of smell. Notice both sit bones are staying down on the mat. The rotation's coming from the centre of the waist. Shoulders are just turning along with it. And then turn back to the front and straighten both legs back out. Give those legs a little shake. Then we're going to take it into a forward restorative fold. So just remove some flesh from under the sit bones. As you take a breath in, reach up through the arms, lengthen up through the waist. Then as you breathe out, try and fold from the hips first. When you get to the range of movement you can get to, just let the hands drop down by the sides of the legs and just let the head curl in, the spine to roll. Try not to force anything, just let that body fold, relax the neck, relax the shoulders. Use the breath. If you wish to bring a cushion here, maybe you want to bring that cushion just onto the top of the thighs, maybe fold over those thighs, just letting the head relax into the cushion, maybe the hands on top of that cushion. Just find that restorative place. Are you still connecting in with that Ujjayi breath, that slight audible sound? Are you staying relaxed through the shoulders and the neck? Then bringing those shoulders slowly curling up through that spine. Bringing the shoulders back over the hips, raising the gaze. You can either keep that cushion on top of your right thigh, take a bend into your left knee and let it drop out to the side. If you wish to support that knee with a block, just place it on if it's hovering up high. You can again use that cushion to fold over that straight leg. Breathe in, lengthen the spine, lift up the arms, breathe out and fold over that straight leg. Track the shoulders towards that right foot and then just allow everything to settle. Relax the neck. Try not to hold any tension in that left hip. Relax that right foot. Maybe make a few circles with that foot of the straight leg. Notice how my spine is curling over that cushion. Try not to use any abdominal strength to fold, just let gravity take a hold of that body. Are you noticing those breaths that are a little deeper now as that body starts to restore, starts to relax? That parasympathetic nervous system kicking in, reducing any adrenaline, any cortisol that's been rushing through the body if you've had a busy day, or if you've had lots on your mind. Knowing those cortisol and adrenaline levels need to happen to take us out of vulnerable situations, but if we keep in that heightened state for too long, our body fatigues, and that's when illnesses and diseases start to creep in. So the more you can do these rest and restore practices, that will help those cortisol levels reduce, those adrenaline levels reduce. Just allow that body to heal itself, to restore itself. Your next breath in, bring those shoulders back over those hips. Straighten out with your left leg. Take a bend now into your right knee and let it come out to the side. Place the cushion, if you're using it, onto the top of your left thigh. Maybe bring that block underneath your right knee. Take a breath in, raise the hands, stretch through the side of the waist, up through the crown, up through the spine. And then as you fold from the hips, track the shoulders towards that foot of the straight leg. Then when you get into your fold, let the head drop, the spine curl, the hands relax. Maybe make some circles with the ankle of the straight leg in one direction, and then make circles the opposite way. How's the shoulders feel? How does that right hip feel as it's externally rotated out to the side? Maybe supported by your block if it's in that hovering space. How does this side compare to the other? Whenever we do two sides, left and right, it's always good to check in with how both feel, how both compare to each other. Always being aware of how your body feels as you relax, restore. Noticing the quality of the breath. Noticing the quality of the still mind. If thoughts come into the head, bring the attention back to the anchor of the breath. So we're getting into the hamstring of that left leg as we did on the right side. Even though we're not so active with the toes, it still helps straighten through that back chain of muscles, lengthen through. Start to walk the hands back up, curling up through that spine, and release that cushion to the side. Our feet are at that short edge of the mat at the front. Bring yourself all the way down to the back. Bring your block or books with you as we take ourselves into a supported bridge. So if you haven't got a block or haven't got books, you can always use your hands to support. Remember, we have three heights. We have the flattest, the second height, and the highest height. So bring that block or books underneath the bum. If you're on the lowest block, make sure it sits at the lower part of the spine and not into the lumbar spine. If you're on the lowest, when you've placed the block, straighten out the legs so we can feel the stretch in those hip flexors. And then release the hands down by the sides of the body and turn the fingers up, palms up, back of the hands flat. If you want to take it to the next height, then turn that block just onto its next level, again making sure it's into that lower back, and then bring those legs again out long and just let that body fall over that block, letting the hip flexors stretch. It will take you into a little more of a back bend if you lift that block a little higher. Then if you want to take it higher, bend the knees again and take the weight into the feet as you lift up the hips, placing that block on its highest level, not in the lower spine, in that sacrum, in between those bum cheeks, that fused part of the spine. And if you've gone up onto this highest space, just allow the legs maybe just to walk a little further away but not straight. And just allow everything to relax in the neck, everything to relax through the shoulders, the palms facing up, the fingers gently curled, the feet are wide just to stabilise in this higher place. And just feel that stretch along the front side of the body, the back of the neck. Just noticing how that body feels in this place. If you haven't got a block, You can always bring the hands just underneath. It's not so relaxing. You do have to use a little strength in the arms to hold the hips. So just find your comfortable space on whatever level you've taken the hips to. The two lowest places you can straighten the legs. The highest part of the block, just keep those knees slightly bent. Long, easy breaths, expanding through that rib cage, through those hip flexors. Closing the eyes if you need to. Try not to hold any tension around that bum. No tension around the shoulders. Maybe still connecting in with that Ujjayi breath. If you're not feeling totally comfortable with anything, just bring yourself out. Maybe bring those knees into the chest. Just another couple of breaths in this position. And wherever you are, bring those feet back underneath the knees. Then push into the feet to raise the hips to remove the block or the books. And then slowly and mindfully bring those bums slowly back down to the floor, feeling each vertebra coming down to the mat, one at a time. Bring the arms to a T shape, bring the feet and the knees together. Let the knees drop over to your left side, the gaze over to your right side. Try and keep the right shoulder down. Once the knees have come to the floor, start to bring them into the chest. Maybe take your left hand onto the top of the right knee to encourage it down a little further. Maybe the gaze towards that right thumb. And just allow everything to relax in this rotation, this twist, neutralizing the spine from the back bends and the forward folds. Relax the shoulders, relax the jaw, relax the forehead. Keep those breaths long. Release that left hand back to the floor. Bring the knees back into the center. Just neutralize the spine if you need to by just lifting the hips, tucking the tailbone down. Bring the knees and feet back together. This time let the knees drop over to your right side. The gaze over to your left. Bringing their knees then a little further up towards the body. Maybe that right hand comes on top of that left knee to encourage it down a little further. Gaze towards those left fingertips, relax the shoulders, relax the jaw, the forehead. Just making sure we're concentrating on that breath. The key to movement, the key for allowing muscles to relax. So whenever we take muscles initially into stretch, they'll resist and contract, thinking you're going to hurt them. But the longer you hold that body in that position, the muscles begin to trust you and they'll start releasing. Those fast twitch muscle fibres will start to slow down and create a little more movement, a little more range in the body. And just another couple of breaths here. Then bringing that right hand back out, palm facing down. Bring the knees back into the centre. Release the feet to the floor. Neutralise that spine again. So choice now can either bring those legs up, pointing the feet up to the ceiling to take it into that restorative pressure off the heart, or if you wish to come a little deeper and get a little more stretch through the back chain and the back of the neck, only if you don't have any issues with high blood pressure or neck issues. Push into the hands, maybe just bend the knees as you bring those knees over the head, and then maybe the feet, try and keep away from your sofa, maybe your feet come down towards the floor. Maybe you can use your block to bring just under those toes, to bring that floor a little closer towards you. The hands come back down. We use them as support, lifting the hips as high as you can take them. The gaze stays up, don't turn the head left or right. Protect that neck. Just holding it here. If you wish to bring the hands to the base of the spine, just to support that body a little more. Remember, if you're not happy in this space or it's not right to go in this space, just keep those legs pointing up towards the ceiling, taking it into that slight inversion. Those legs being lifted takes a little more pressure off that heart. Lengthen a little more through the back of that neck. Try and let those shoulders come away from the ears. Again, keeping those eyes closed, the jaw relaxed, the forehead relaxed. Then to make your way out, bring the knees into the chest, bring the hands back to the floor, slowly curl down that spine. If you've been in that plough place position, bring the legs out long, lift up onto the top of your head, pushing the chest up, supporting through the elbows into our fish position. So we're taking the neck into the opposite place where it's been to. So we counterpose that neck. Just holding it here for just a few more breaths. Then coming off the top of the head, bring the knees into the chest, squeeze them tight into the body, Keeping the lower spine on the floor, the shoulders down. Squeeze them a little closer. Then bring those elbows to the inside of the knees, taking a hold of either the shins, the ankles, the outside of the feet, or the big toes. Finding that happy baby. Try to pop the heels, stack on top of the knees. Bring the knees into the sides of the body as though they're aiming towards the armpits. The thighs coming to the outside of the ribs. Try and keep the shoulders relaxed, the lower spine relaxed. Everything in this relaxing, happy baby pose is either being stretched, flexed. Again, still finding that restore place. Bring those feet together to the mat. Bring the hands onto the hips. Let the knees drop out. Let the feet come together. Maybe just rock those hips a little. Those knees maybe coming down to tap. And bring that body to stillness. Let everything from gravity taking everything down. Let everything relax into the floor. Holding it in butterfly pose for a few breaths. Or your choice may be to stay here for the whole of relaxation. If you wish to find full Shavasana, reach out the feet to the ends of the mat. Let them drop out to the sides. Turn the palms up, let the fingers gently curl. Take a nice long easy breath in. Long breath out. Bring the attention to the space between each toe. Be aware of the balls of the feet, the tops of the feet, the ankles, the shins and the calves, the knees, the thighs and the hamstrings, hip bones and sit bones, belly, ribs, chest and collarbones, lower spine, mid-spine, upper spine, back of the head, top of the head, forehead, eyes, nose, cheeks, lips, jaw, chin, throat, shoulders, tops of the arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, back of the hands, palm of the hands, the space between 8 fingers and 2 thumbs. The whole body relaxed, supported by the floor. Noticing your own natural automatic breath. letting the tongue drop away from the roof of the mouth and the lips gently part. The eyelids softly closing over the eyeballs. Nice, easy breaths in and long breaths out. Starting now to wriggle the fingers, wriggle the toes. Maybe bring a stretch of the hands up and over the head, stretching through the fingers, the toes, maybe arching into that lower back. And then bringing those hands up and over, bring the knees into the chest. Make circles with the ceiling, on the ceiling in one direction. Do that a few times, massaging that lower back. Then make circles in the opposite direction. And bring those knees into the chest. Give those knees a squeeze. And take a hold of the crease of the knee and rock up and down that spine a couple of times. Up to seated once and back down. Up to seated twice, back down. And this time just roll over onto one side. Make a pillow with the hands. Take a couple of long, easy breaths here, in through the nose. And a long sigh out through the mouth. And when you're ready, slowly making your way into a seated position. Finding that cross-leg space or on the knees. Bring the hands on top of the thighs. Take a roll of the shoulders up towards the ears, back down towards the hips. Tuck the chin into the chest. Then gaze up to the ceiling, stretch the front of the neck. Bring the head back to centre. Take a gaze towards the right side. Back through centre. Gaze to the left. Back to centre. Right ear to the right shoulder. Back to the centre. Left ear to the left shoulder. And back to the centre. Take a long, easy breath in. Bring the hands up and over the head. Relax through the shoulders. Bring the hands down to the chest. Soft gaze to the floor. Have peace in your thoughts. Have peace in your words. Have peace in your hearts. From my heart to yours, Namaste.